Bilal Coulibaly was overshadowed as a prospect during the draft process, which was expected when he's on a team with one of the greatest prospects in basketball history. In fact, many believe he would be a 2024 draft prospect instead of a 2023 prospect. However, toward the end of the cycle, he started to really play well, and his name started to pick up steam due to his size, athleticism, defensive capabilities, and upside overall as a player, which eventually resulted in him being drafted 7th overall by the Pacers and then immediately traded to the Wizards. While his rookie season didn't stand out on paper, especially compared to some of his peers, he showed a lot more and looked a lot ahead of schedule compared to where I thought he would be in terms of his offensive development. And to start this season, he's been incredible, and honestly, if he did decide to declare for the 2024 draft, he probably would have been the first overall pick. Coulibaly is the modern day wing. Good height, long arms, good athlete, elite lateral movement, high-end defensive intangibles, and growing offensive game. While I struggle to call the Wizards a good team, they've been really fun to watch through these first 2 games, and Coulibaly is a big reason for that. In this video, I want to talk about Bilal Coulibaly and why he looks like the next great two-way wing in the NBA. But before we go any further, if you're new and like basketball, I'd really appreciate if you would like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, notified whenever I release a video. If you enjoy basketball, I really think you're going to enjoy my content. And doing all of those things are the best way to let me and YouTube know that you enjoy my content, so I can make more of it in the future. Anyways, let's talk about Bilal Coulibaly. While he's not perfect in this area, and we shouldn't expect him to be perfect in this area, he's only a 20-year-old rookie. I've seen a lot of promise with what Bilal Coulibaly can do as a scorer, including some really encouraging flashes on the ball. He's a very good athlete, good quickness, good speed, good vertical pop, good flexibility, good body control. He's not quite the freak athlete some of his peers are, but he still has a very good athletic profile. And he's shown some real promise, in my opinion, in terms of craft and creativity, use of body control and flexibility on his on-ball reps both in the half court and in transition. I'm not comparing them as players, they're very different players, and I think it would be a lot to ask of him to become this player. In fact, they don't even play the same position. But he does have a handful of plays on tape that remind me a bit of what SGA does in terms of the craft and creativity, the finding the angles, using body control and flexibility around the basket. It's not quite the same, but there are some aesthetic similarities there, in my opinion. Now, do I think there's enough to suggest that Coulibaly can be a primary scoring option or has potential to be one? It's hard to definitively say he does. I think it's possible based off the fact that he's improving at such a rapid rate, but when I look at him play, he has a lot of on-ball reps and they're around the basket. He doesn't have a lot when it comes to creating on the ball, when it comes to perimeter scoring, and as a shooter. There are some flashes of it, but I like to see more of it to believe that he could be like the primary scoring option. I know I've talked a lot recently about the value of rim pressure when it comes to main options, and Coulibaly has shown promise as a rim pressure threat. He's drawing fouls at a good rate, he's attacking the basket well. His efficiency is unreal right now around the rim, but I do expect that number to go down. I expect him to take more reps, and that number will drop from the 90 it's at to probably around the mid to high 60s, which is still very good, but not quite 90. 90 is absurd even for a complete role player big that's only taking dump offs and lobs, let alone a guy on the wing that does create. I think that Coulibaly is a player that shows a lot of promise when it comes to on-ball creation, but I don't think he quite hits the threshold of playmaker that suggests that he can overcome the lack of on-ball perimeter offense the way I see it with John Morant or the upside of Amen Thompson, who are 2 guys I think have such high playmaking intangibles that they don't need to be perimeter guys or perimeter creators at the very least to maximize and reach All-NBA to potential MVP kind of heights. What I see with Bilal is a ton of upside as a potential high-end number 2 option, because he has shown enough potential with his on-ball juice combined with the off-ball scoring that he's able to do for me to believe that he can be a high-end player, but not quite the number 1 guy. I think he could easily be a 22 to 23, maybe a bit more than that point per game scorer if everything goes right. And based off his progression so far, especially at the rate it's going at such a young age, I at least have in the back of my mind that he could exceed the upside that he's showing right now. Coulibaly was already ahead of schedule as a shooter in his rookie season. On the surface, 34.6%, 2.9 attempts per game doesn't look the best, but for a player who was a massive question mark as a shooter entering the NBA, that's actually really promising, and he's been even better this season, shooting 47.6% on 4.2 attempts per game. Now, almost all of his 3-point production is off the catch. He's not much of a creator from beyond the arc. However, that's more of a nitpick than anything else. Being a good to great off-ball shooter is still incredibly valuable. I don't know if nearly 48% from beyond the arc is sustainable. That's an all-time rate to hit threes at, even when it's a player that's taking only a decent amount of volume from beyond the arc. And he still does have things to iron out. He can definitely speed up his shot prep. I'd like to see him get into his shot pocket quicker. I think that could increase his volume long term. But he's a very willing shooter, which is really promising on its own, and he's getting results. I don't know if what he's doing right now holds for the whole season, but I still think he's probably 37 to 40% on 4 to 5 attempts per game by season's end, and that's still really good. Regardless if I have criticism of Bilal as a shooter or not, the fact that he is showing this much promise, the fact that he is progressing at the rate he is at such a young age, and I still think he can iron some things out and get even better as a shooter, it's a good problem to have. Defense was the calling card for Coulibaly entering the NBA, and that remains the case. So far this season, he's holding opposing players to 37.3% from the field and 24% from 3. What makes him so good is he can legit defend 1 through 3 right now, and as he gets a bit stronger, I think that could extend to 1 through 4. He has elite defensive traits, both on and off the ball. His lateral quickness and athleticism combined with his motor, instincts, and intangibles define what you want in an elite defensive player. Having a guy who can be put on an island against elite perimeter players while also being a monster off-ball defensive playmaker is incredibly valuable. And the scary part is, his defensive value will only go up as he gets stronger. He's only around 195 pounds right now, and I think his frame suggests he can get to 210, 215 and still maintain his athleticism and movement skills. I think what we're looking at defensively is someone who can be like OG Anunoby, what Phoenix Mikal Bridges was defensively. And while it's a lofty expectation, and I don't think he should be held to this standard because it would be unfair to him, I do think the best case scenario for what Bilal Coulibaly can be defensively is something like prime Kawhi Leonard on defense. Now, regardless of his defensive outcome, he will be a great one because he's already a great one in my opinion, or at least on the border of being a great one at such a young age. He's going to be a mainstay on all defense teams if he stays healthy for a very long time. He'll be a player that has a massive impact on the game, even if he doesn't score a lot of points. And the fact that he's shown potential to be a good scorer only raises his value as a player. I think Bilal Coulibaly has legit star upside. When you look at how rapidly his offense is progressing at such a young age, combined with his elite defensive ability, it's easy to see the star potential. I do think it will be closer to a secondary star than a primary star, but that's not a bad thing either. A guy who could be a secondary option offensively and be a main focal point defensively is still valuable. I think the best case scenario for Bilal Coulibaly when it comes to the ceiling I see with him as a player is a guy that puts up around 20 to 23 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, 3 to 4 assists per game, with good to great efficiency and elite defense. Somebody that can thrive off a lead option while also being able to contribute on the ball as well. What I described is basically what Jaylen Brown did in the 2024 playoffs. This may sound like a hot take, but I think Coulibaly is up there with Brandon Miller in terms of upside as a player. I think Miller has more offensive upside because he's a more natural scorer, he's a better shot creator in my opinion, and he's a better playmaker. But while I think Miller has upside to be really good defensively, I think the upside defensively that Coulibaly has is one of the 5 to 10 best defensive players in the world, and when you combine that with his offensive upside, I think if both players hit their best possible outcome, they'll return similar value overall as players, even if it doesn't quite look the same. And both those guys are ones I view as all-star to fringe all-NBA guys if they hit their best outcome. Time will tell with how good Bilal Coulibaly actually is, but it's hard to look at his progression on offense and his ability on defense and at least not consider the idea of him being a starter one day. In fact, I think if Coulibaly didn't declare for the 2023 NBA draft and got another year under his belt with more on-ball reps, he wouldn't be in Washington right now. Well, he might be, but I think he would be an Atlanta Hawk because I think he would have gone first overall in 2024 if he was in that draft class. Because he basically does everything you hope Visese can develop into. I know people have overrated the two-way wing archetype a lot. I know people have been trying to pencil in that next Kawhi Leonard or Jimmy Butler. They did it with Josh Jackson. They did it with DeAndre Hunter. They did it with Patrick Williams. They did it with Isaac Okoro. And even with guys like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, who've been really good to great two-way wings, they've been overhyped at times as well. I don't know if we'll ever see the next Kawhi or Butler. Both of those guys are Hall of Fame players, some of the best of their generation. It's a lot to ask of somebody, and I also think that every player is unique in their own way. But regardless of if Coulibaly can reach heights like Kawhi or Butler, it doesn't change the fact that he has upside to be an incredible player for a very long time. But that's the end of this video. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, haven't already, like, subscribe, hit notification bell, I'm notified whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball, and if you enjoy basketball, I think you're going to enjoy my content. And doing all those things are the best way to let YouTube know, and myself know, more importantly, that you enjoy my content, so I can make more of it in the future. Let me know what you think about Bilal Coulibaly. How good do you think he can be? Who are some other young wings that you're fans of in the NBA? I'd love to do all of that in the comment section below. But with that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.